Hello folks, it's your main man E, and I'm here today to talk to you about a really important topic. That's the topic of correcting your dog with the remote collar when it comes to obedience commands, okay? We're not talking about the dog digging holes in the yard right now or barking when we're inside of the house. We're talking about we have given a command that we have taught the dog, and the dog has either not performed the command when we have given the verbal prompt, or the dog has performed the command, but then when a distraction happened, the dog broke out of the command without hearing the proper word that releases them from that command. Okay? Now, it's really important that when you correct the dog, you follow this sequence. And the sequence is you say the word no, and then after you say the word no, 1 to 2 seconds later, you have a consequence via the remote collar. Now, a lot of times people are asking me, what level does the remote collar need to be on? Well, this is another thing that's so important to keep in mind. The only way you will know if you corrected the dog is if the dog does not perform the same mistake in the future that you corrected them for making. Okay, so if I correct the dog, then that means in the future we are both going to see very clearly that the dog has learned from the consequence and they are no longer making that mistake. So it's imperative when it comes to using these remote collars that you master the art of holding it down like this and turning it up to find the appropriate level. Or you use a remote collar like the Pro Educator that has a feature where when you tap that button, it will turn up automatically. Now, it is possible sometimes that you can tap another button on the remote collar that might be 5 or 10 or 20 higher, and sometimes that works great. However, oftentimes we find that we need to understand precisely how high that correction needs to be to ensure that the dog doesn't do the behavior again in the future, but to also ensure that it's not such a high correction that the dog perhaps loses some of their competency. Okay, so when it comes to the dog losing competency, what I'm referring to is correcting the dog and then they don't successfully understand, oh, I shouldn't have done what I did, I should go back into my command, or go into my command when they first tell me to. Oh, I got it, I understand. And we move forward with a dog that knows things more clearly. So it's really important that if you're correcting the dog and they seem confused, you guide them into the proper position with the leash, or you repeat the command, or you even tap the remote collar at a low level to indicate to them, hey, keep trying, move yourself into this position. And that is what the goal is here, is after the correction, you move into the proper position, and then we are able to repeat the distraction again and see, did we make the connection between the consequence and either breaking out of the command or not going into the command when first prompted. Now, when it comes to these remote collars, sometimes we are going to tap the remote collar at a higher level or whatever level is necessary, and that is going to be our consequence. We just tap the remote collar once, or perhaps we tap it a couple times at a higher level. Now, in other situations, we may hold the remote collar down for 1 or 2 or however long we need to hold the remote collar down. We will hold the remote collar down at a higher level, and that will be a consequence to the dog that will help them understand what they did was not proper, was not good, and that in the future it's best to avoid doing that. So how do we know whether we need to hold the remote collar down or we need to tap it when it comes to correcting our dog? That's really where exercises like this are going to come into play. Setting up these scenarios in low to moderate distraction levels, creating situations that invite your dog or entice them to make mistakes, and then give you the opportunity to correct them and see and feel, what does it look like when there's a successful correction? What does it look like when I correct the dog and then in the future it's very clear to me, it's very clear to them that the correction was effective, they learned from it, and we are all in a better place as far as our understanding goes and our confidence and our competence. Okay, folks, so hopefully you found this little explanation helpful. I suggest you go ahead and watch my video showing you exactly what that looks like when you're correcting the dog, and you can find that video on YouTube. Now, if you found this video helpful, go ahead and hit the like button or the subscribe button, ideally both. And remember, we don't blame them, we train them. Until next time.